Welcome back, everyone, to this week's episode of Talk Exchange. Today's guest is Rhonda Newton of the organization Darkness to Light, and she talks today about her organization's 25-year history in preventing child sexual abuse. It's very valuable information. We hope you get a lot out of today's episode, and we'll see you again next week.
Welcome to Talk Exchange. I'm Tracy Edwards, CEO of the National Exchange Club.
And I'm Christy Lindahl, Director of Communications.
Christy, we've had so much fun developing these podcast episodes and talking to so many guests. And as we head into April, which is National Child Abuse Prevention Month, we're going to focus there.
Yes.
Our national project. And today we're working with one of our national partners who's been a partner and friend of Exchange, Darkness to Light, for many years since its founding several years ago in collaboration with the Exchange Club of Charleston, South Carolina. And today our guest is their Executive Director, Rhonda Newton. Welcome, Rhonda.
Thank you, Tracy. Thanks so much for having me on as a guest today. And hello, Talk Exchange listeners.
Well, thank you for joining us. I know we have some exciting things coming up. We appreciated you joining us at our last national convention in San Antonio. And from there, I know we've continued to talk about all of the things that we can do together based on our mutual focus in preventing child abuse. So tell us a little bit. First, let's lead off with Darkness to Light's mission and focus.
Absolutely. So I like to say we're a small but mighty team with a vision of ending child sexual abuse. We're actually celebrating our 25th anniversary this year. So over 25 years ago, a little bit of the history, a child sexual abuse crisis had come to light, and that stirred up Charleston, South Carolina. And we had a small but very passionate group of citizens. They came together and they questioned why services only were available after a child was abused. And they wanted to know, what can we do to prevent abuse and keep children safe? So that group mobilized other community members and they created an initiative around educating adults to protect children. And that's how in the year 2000, Darkness to Light was officially born. Our mission is to provide adults with knowledge and tools they need to build safe environments that protect children from sexual abuse. We believe that it is an adult's responsibility. So it's an adult's responsibility to prevent, to recognize, and to react responsibly to child sexual abuse.
Absolutely, and that aligns perfectly with the National Exchange Club's initiative to prevent child abuse. So this is something that I know you and I have talked about several times, and ways that we can work together to get this important message out there and to educate adults. So to that effect, why do you feel that this is a critical time now? You know, it makes you think about how 25 years ago this was a crisis, and same with child abuse,
Yes.
right? Which National Exchange Club identified years ago, and yet we're still seeing it happen. Do we need to educate more people? What do you see as being critical to this effort?
Absolutely. So, I mean, if we take a little step back as to why this is a critical issue to begin with, it impacts millions of children worldwide, and there's devastating long-term consequences of it. The science behind it, they talk about it's an adverse childhood experience and it's linked to chronic health problems. There is an estimated 42 million adult survivors of sexual abuse living in just the US today. So
Oh
when
my
we think
God.
about that, right, like think about that being 700 NFL stadiums that are full with
Wow.
survivors. And you have survivors frequently experiencing things like mental health challenges,
Sure.
depression, anxiety, PTSD, all of these difficulties with relationships and self esteem and trust. And then beyond the personal toll, you have the effect on families, communities, and society as a whole, which contributes to that cycle of trauma and the economic burdens that are related to healthcare, criminal justice, and lost productivity. And many times we're trapped in a cycle of treating the downstream effects of child sexual abuse. But if we tackle this at the source, imagine that ripple effect that would be, resulting from that. There's a saying from Desmond Tutu where it said, we need to stop just pulling people out of the river. Some of us need to go upstream and find out why they're falling in. So if we
Mm-hmm.
imagine just how many instances of self-harming behaviors, mental health issues that can be stopped if we work on preventing child sexual abuse to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of work yet to be done in that area. It's very much easier to talk about physical abuse. We can talk about neglect, but as soon as you put in that word sex in there, you
Mm-hmm.
shut a lot of people down. And so it's still about breaking that stigma and breaking that taboo.
Excellent point. And what are some of the misconceptions that people have about child sexual abuse?
Well, several, right? So one, it would be like child sexual abuse is rare. It doesn't happen in my family. It doesn't happen in my neighborhood or in my community. But that's just not right. That's not accurate. We have studies that show it's 1 in 10 children that experience sexual abuse before
Oh,
their 18th
jeez.
birthday. So it's more common than most people realize. And now, we have a lot of emphasis on and research being done on the online environment. You
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
have data that shows 1 in 5 youth experience unwanted online exposure to sexually explicit material, and 1 in 9 youth will experience online sexual exploitation. So
Wow.
that idea of, oh, this doesn't happen, it's not happening in my home, that's not accurate. So that's definitely one of those misconceptions that, we're trying to break apart and break that myth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's still the myth, believe it or not, that strangers are the main threat. We've done quite well, though, in dispelling that myth through awareness campaigns, both Darkness to Light and other organizations that tackle this issue. But there are still some, who think about it more in terms of stranger danger. And the reality is the vast majority of child sexual abuse, about 90%, is perpetrated by someone the child knows and trusts. So you're talking about family members, teachers, coaches, religious leaders. And now research is coming out with one particular demographic that 70%, and we have this in our training, and it shocks. It's one of those stats that a lot of people comment on. It's the fact that 70% of children who are sexually abused are abused by a peer. So that whole myth about it's strangers,
Right.
it's not happening here. That's not accurate. It is a misconception.
Mm-hmm. And to that end, Rhonda, talk about your Stewards for Children training. I know we're going to do a session with you at our leadership meeting, and I'm glad to see that your focus is on that platform, which has been proven to really save children and protect children. So, talk about how you deliver that across the country and what you expect to come of that program.
Sure. Absolutely. So Stewards of Children, it's research based, it's evidence informed. We've won a few awards, Telly Awards. It's 2.5 hours. And what we do is exactly what our mission is all about. We teach adults to prevent child sexual abuse, how to recognize those signs, not just of abuse, but also red flag behavior and grooming tactics. And we talk about how do you react responsibly in the face of whether it's boundary violations, what do you do? Because sometimes you can see it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of us, we get paralyzed. We don't know what's the next step.
Yeah.
So we ensure that adults who take this training do know what the other step is and how to even intervene when you see boundaries being violated. Like, what are those steps that you can internalize to step in and do something? Or what do you do should you find out, you suspect or you discover that sexual abuse is occurring, or if a child comes and tells you that something is happening? So we do that through interviews with a very diverse group of people with lived experience, who are experts in the field, and treatment providers. And we talk about practical actions that the adult can take to reduce instances of child sexual abuse in their organizations, in their families, and their communities. We're very proud in the way that the training is delivered. It's delivered in a very trauma informed way. We have a facilitated and a self paced online version, and the facilitated version is led by facilitators who have been rigorously trained. I'm grateful for the opportunity. In the convention last year, I was able to train some of your exchange
Yes.
members at the convention, and then being able to come in and see your board and train them as well.
Mm-hmm.
What you will see are powerful videos with authentic storytelling by experts with lived experience, and that's paired with robust facilitated discussion.
Hmm.
So there's a highly interactive portion of the facilitated training. It was nice to hear from Marley Williams earlier this month, and I'm looking
Yes.
Yes.
forward to her keynote. um,
Great.
y- she talked about how adults learn, about
Yes.
interactivity, about making those small changes that make big differences. And that's what our training does. It embodies all of those components. So when you leave our training, people walk away feeling empowered to act as opposed to, oh my goodness, this is a issue that I don't know what to do with it.
And what is the resulting impact of that? I'm just wondering. So, as you deliver these training courses, how often do you hear back from a person who took the course and said, I needed to use that. I needed to apply that information. I'm just curious, what does the feedback look like on that? Because it's one of those things that is a safety measure, and I'm just wondering about the feedback and the results from that program. I
Overwhelmingly
bet.
positive,
Mm-hmm.
overwhelmingly so. It's we even have a study that was done on it, and it showed that there was changes in behavior, there were changes in attitudes with this training as part of the intervention.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that on the bigger scale. And then we have individuals who come back and they give us feedback that they needed this, that they were so thankful for it. The revision to the program, because as you know, Exchange Club, like you had mentioned, have been at the very beginning of Darkness to Light's growth and their inception. Um, but in 2015, thereabouts, when we had some of the revisions of our training, we didn't touch it until 2023, and we really did look at how to make that more trauma informed and how to make it more practical for adults to pull something away from the training to go do something with it.
Good.
And we've gotten that feedback,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, now I know how to apply some of these things that you're talking about in my own personal sphere of influence. And that's something that we unpack greatly, because I'm not a social media person. I'll probably be more like a lurker, so you won't find me doing all those posts on
All right.
Facebook or anything. Like, no, I will lurk, but my sphere of influence might be very different from somebody who is that person who loves to go on social media and like to get those resources out. I would say my family first. Let me talk to my sister, let me talk to these people. That's my area of influence. And the fact is that we each have one of those,
Mm-hmm.
and we kind of we set the expectation that whatever little, and going back to what Marley says, right, these small changes that make big differences, the small change that I can make in my sister's family's life, whereas somebody who is broadcasting to their whole social network, it adds up and it takes all of us.
Yeah.
Sure.
What are some of the big success stories that you like to share? Maybe some moments that made you feel like, yes, I am in the right place
Mm-hmm.
too.
Okay, so we've been working on our fiscal year 2024 impact report, and that's going to go public this week. And one
Great.
particular success story stands out to me, and that might be because of how fresh that impact report is in my mind, but it's also because it involves an organization that you would not expect to invest in child sexual abuse prevention training, and that's the American Kennel Club.
Mm.
Yeah.
Do you
Wow,
guys
that
love
is
dogs? I
surprising.
adore dogs.
Right.
So the AKC's central mission is all about dogs, right?
Yes.
But they're a family friendly
Mm-hmm.
organization, and they have children as young as 9 years old that can become junior handlers and participate in events. And many of their professional handlers got their start as teenage apprentices.
Hmm.
Did you all know that? Because I didn't.
No,
No.
I would have never have guessed that. No, and I watch a lot of dog shows, so
Oh,
I love doing these podcasts. We learned so
I
much
know.
random stuff.
That just makes me think I've never seen a child handler, but that's cool. They need to start early,
Yeah.
they,
right? Yeah.
they did. So they recognized that there were potential risks that youth would face in semi-private spaces.
Yeah.
So they mandated stewards of children for all their staff, all their registered handlers, their judges, their local clubs, their youth coordinators there. And they've enrolled over 3,000 participants, and more than
Wow.
12,000 are scheduled to complete training
Wow.
this year. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, they also provide safe sport training for children and parents, but what they recognized was a need for a more tailored, comprehensive approach to child protection. So their initiative to integrate Stewards of Children, it was more than just a training program. It really was a cultural shift. So that
Hmm.
one sticks out
Yeah,
to me.
that's
Definitely.
amazing. Talk about impact.
That is
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, I love to hear that. And it just you think about the delivery of your program, and certainly that's what we're trying to do in collaboration with you is deliver this via our Exchange Club network nationally.
Hmm.
So, and it's amazing though those niche places like the American Kennel
Oh, I
Club
know.
that are so proactive and forward thinking that they're working to protect children.
Yeah, I
That's
mean, if it
amazing.
takes some of the numbers
Kudos to
that,
them.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
some of the
Mm-hmm.
numbers that Rhonda, you gave us at the beginning of the episode,
Mm-hmm.
and contrast that to the numbers you just gave us about, how many people have been trained. That's a lot of
Yes,
children who can
Oh,
be
yeah.
impacted.
Yeah.
absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. Like, it's easy to say, oh, it's a training, but that's not what it is. It's at least one adult out there
Mm,
that is better equipped to protect a child. And when
yes.
you think
Yes.
about how many children we each interact with
Mm-hmm.
on a daily basis, that the potential for maximizing impact, the potential to execute on that vision of ending child sexual abuse, it's immense.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, it starts with awareness first, and you're really promoting
Yes.
awareness, so that's awesome.
Absolutely. So, you did ask me about Stewards of Children before, and I just wanted to, we have a foundation that we teach from.
Mm-hmm.
So, apart from just our theory of change, the curriculum itself is built on that first step, like you talk about the awareness piece. So, the
Right.
first step to, when we have five of them, so five steps to protecting children, and that first step is knowing the facts around it. Which is critical. You need to know the facts to understand the prevalence, to understand the impact that you yourself as an individual, and then by virtue of all of the changes you can activate within your sphere could make. And then we talk about how do you minimize the opportunities for abuse to occur. What
Mm-hmm.
does that look like? Is it having great policies in place? What is a good policy? Is it eliminating one-on-one situations with children and making sure that they're interruptible, they're observable? And sometimes you have to get creative with some of
Mm-hmm.
these. We had interviewed a priest. And, when you think about the confessional, that's a one-on-one
Yeah.
situation. And we brainstormed with that. And he even talked about, well, it was easy when you're observable, so somebody could see you but not necessarily hear you, and that's protective of the child so that you're not in that uninterruptible space where something could happen. And it's just working through those pieces where you can minimize the opportunity. And we talk about talking. How do you talk
Yes.
about this, and not just to adults, but how do you talk about this in a developmentally appropriate way
Right.
with kids?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not something to be fearful about. And the last two steps of our five steps is about recognizing those signs, recognizing and the grooming behaviors, any red flags, things that make the hair on your neck go up. And even when you recognize signs of abuse, what does that look like? Because that's another misconception, right? Where many times you think if there's no physical sign of abuse didn't occur. That's not true. Very rarely are there physical signs. So you're looking at other signs, your behavioral signs, and
Mm-hmm.
all of that. So we talk about that in that fourth step, and then our fifth step, like I mentioned, about reacting responsibly. What does that look like? What do you do in the face of something happening or suspicion of something happening?
Mm-hmm.
So very comprehensive.
Yeah, that's a very solid
Mm-hmm.
breakdown.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Now, with social media and just this training available and others, and just more building more awareness, have you noticed in recent years or months that people are more willing to speak out, that they're more willing to come forward because maybe they can on social media? Maybe there's more encouragement to
Hmm.
speak out. Are you finding that there are more people speaking out to help others, or how does that look?
Yes, I think it's been a vast difference. Like if we just take the 25 years that we
Right.
ourselves, Darkness to Light, has been in existence, it's a vast change from
Good.
2000 to now, which is very, it's encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
you have so many amazing groups out there too. There's a Brave movement, Keep Kids Safe, where you have coalitions of survivors who are coming out and talking about prevention, talking about healing, talking about justice. And they're able to bring that conversation into the mainstream so that we're breaking down that taboo. Now, there are
Good.
still individual, when you look at the individual context, when you look at some of the cultural dynamics, there's much work to be done, but at least on national levels, you're seeing that conversation taking place. And even in January, I'm sure you've seen social media being flooded by human trafficking
Yeah.
awareness information. So,
Mm-hmm.
and April is great. You mentioned it, and you mentioned, the work that you all are doing leading up to April. So we're making strides, but still much to be done.
Much should be done.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
we've come a long way from where it was a private family problem.
That is
fortunately.
so true. Yes.
Yes.
So, Rhonda, if
Yeah.
somebody listening would like to offer support or get involved with Darkness to Light, where should they go?
Go to d2l.org. That's our website. We have tons of resources, research, and information on there that you can share with others. It's where you can sign up for our newsletter as well. So you're always in the know and you're provided relevant information. I would say you can also support our work by getting trained or advocating for your community to be trained by an authorized facilitator. You can become a facilitator yourself. So, facilitators don't need to be experts in the field. We train you and provide you all the support you need to be effective at delivering trainings in your community.
How would somebody go about bringing this to their community? Is there any type of support they should look for before they reach out to you?
Well, our facilitator support team, they're equipped to do that. So if that is something that you're interested in, you just contact us. We have lead instructors who are ready to help you along that journey. We have toolkits that you can use when having that conversation within your community. So if
Excellent.
you wanted to take it to your faith community, how do you start that conversation? Who do you talk to? We can help guide you in that.
And we're hopeful that based on the partnership that we have reestablished with you since you came on with Darkness to Light and our training that we're going to do with our leaders, that exchange clubs around the country will be able to bring this training to their communities as well via their contacts.
Yes.
So we're looking to
hope so.
increase the impact. Absolutely.
It's so much in line with
Yes.
what that facet of your national project that it makes sense that
Absolutely.
happens.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for partnering with the National Exchange Club. Thanks for the work that you do with Darkness to Light, and we'll look forward to continuing that to increase the impact and awareness. So thanks to Rhonda Newton, Executive Director of Darkness to Light, for joining us today. And if you'd like to learn more about this important initiative, please visit d2l.org or nationalexchangeclub.org. Thanks for listening to this episode of Talk Exchange. Awesome. Great
Thank you,
information.
Rhonda.
Thank you.
Yeah. Happy dance.
Yeah, good job. Wow, you just know this so well. It made it really easy, right?
Oh, good.